Okay guys, time for another Blood Bowl vlog. Yeah, on the way to work, just done at the gym after a nice long weekend. Don't know how it works wherever you are, but here in the UK we've got Good Friday and Monday as public holidays as well, so just had a nice long break. Shout out of course to all our brothers and sisters in the dark house they call the hospitality industry, who've basically just had 4 worse days at work than usual. Being there, so I feel your pain. Hopefully some of you managed to get Tuesday or Wednesday off and you can paint some miniatures or something like that, or do something else. I believe there are other pastimes, I hear. Never seen them, but anyway. So today I just want to have a little talk about stalling your touchdown or coming across your opponent when they stall theirs. What is it, why do you do it, and what to do against it. Stalling is probably not something that you actually do when you're just at home playing pickup games with your mate or something like that, or even in league situations, because you get star player points for touchdowns. You may be more compelled to score a touchdown with more regularity than you might in tournament play. So why would you stall? Well, if you consider you're up against a Wood Elf team or something like that, or Skaven, with really rapid players that can easily score in 2 turns. If you were to score on your turn 6, then you've given them 2 turns to respond and get that equaliser before the half or something like that. So in an ideal scenario, what you do is you're scoring late enough in the drive, in the half, to prevent them easily getting a touchdown back. Now obviously some teams are capable of doing a 1-turn touchdown, but perhaps they're maybe you turn them over or something like that, and they don't get a chance anyway. But either way, that's the general idea. That's the basic idea behind stalling. There's still a little bit of I don't know what it is, a bit of a sort of negative connotations about stalling, and sometimes when I'm up against an opponent who does it, they'll apologise and say, "No, sorry, I've got to just stall this out here." I never really expect or require an apology for someone stalling against me. It's a perfectly viable tactic. It's many times the correct thing to do. But one thing that you need to remember, if you're ever looking at a situation, say you've got your drive progressed up the pitch, you're not sure whether to score or not, or wait it out, give your opponent less time to respond. Just always remember that the only guaranteed touchdown is the one that you put over the line, okay? If you've got the opportunity to score and you put it in, then at the very least, you've got to remember your opponent has to roll dice somewhere in order to score. Whereas if you've got that opportunity to just put the touchdown in just by walking your player across the line, that's guaranteed, isn't it? So always bear that in mind if you're ever tempted to stall, or if you're thinking over whether it's the right thing to do in that situation. So I'll give you a little example of, gather round for another story, of something that happened to me in a tournament. I think it was the World Cup Italy 2015, when I was away over there with Wales. And my opponent was Lizardman, and he had made the decision to stall out. But what he'd done was he'd left me a 5+ dodge, I think, off the top of my head, with my Dwarf Blitzer that was on the floor. So maybe I had to make a go for it or something as well, somewhere along the lines, because obviously I was down on the floor. That's 3 squares of movement reduced for my Blitz. Either way, I still had a re-roll left, and the dice were favourable in that situation. So it wasn't an ideal scenario for him to stall, really. I made the blitz. I surfed his skink. By surfed, sorry, that is in case that's not a term you've come across yet. That just means I pushed him into the crowd off the pitch. Crowd surf. Ball scattered somewhere, I can't remember where. And that was to save the result. So I can't recall if it was to save the draw or the victory, but it certainly saved me some points and cost him some. So that just goes to show that to stall out is not always the correct decision to make. You can always roll that 6 up into a cage. That does happen. And at the end of the day, if you are against stalling, you might be in that desperate situation where the 6+ into the cage is all you got left. And so if that's the situation and you roll that 6, yeah, you know, you might have a half dice or two dice uphill block, but you've still given yourself a chance. You know, you can roll 2 powers, you can roll 2 double downs, something like that, and save the score. So when you're stalling, you want to make sure that the situation for your opponent to recover the stall is as difficult as possible. So that could be a cloud caging situation where they've got to make multiple difficult dodges to get to your ball carrier. Obviously, you want to make sure you've got some defending players so that the actual block is as difficult as possible as well. And how do you defend against the situation as well? So if you're being stalled against, what do? Do you just wait it out? It depends. One thing you can do is simply beat the hell out of the rest of the team. So your opponent maybe sat there with a nice cage just by your touch line, but if the rest of his team is being absolutely decimated by your guys, turn after turn that he stalls, that may prompt him to think, you know what, I'm going to put this in, set back up, get my... Maybe there's a blitzer over there that you keep fouling or something. Now, fouling, obviously, be careful with that. If you've got expensive linemen, if you're an elf team or something like that, then you're probably not fouling, but you know, if you've got cheap guys like zombies and stuff, or Nurgle rotters that you can foul with, and you're taking shots at his, he's got a couple of nice positional players over there, he's probably going to want them to get them out of trouble, and the easiest way for him to do that is to score the touchdown and set back up again. So that's one way of dealing with a stall out. The second, obviously, is to put pressure on the situation. So that's bringing guys back, blitzing maybe a corner of his cage out or something like that, depending on how many players he's managed to guard around his ball carrier for the stall. So it might be a cozy situation one turn that he thinks, I can wait this out. This is a nice situation. Ball's safe. Got my guy right next to the touchline, and all of a sudden you've got a corner of his cage around. You've got 2 guys next to his ball carrier, and maybe another guy there to help. So he's all of a sudden got to roll dice. Now, the thing to remember here is that you may not even have to recover the ball. It may be just a case of forcing your opponent to put the touchdown in. We don't want our opponent to score in Blood Bowl. We want to have a nice tight defensive game and keep clean sheets and things like that. But sometimes it's just the way of the game. If your opponent, if you force them to score and you give yourself 2 or 3 turns to get that touchdown in response, that could be the perfect way to kind of set up the second half. Maybe if you can get it back to 1-1 at the half, then you've got your drive, for instance. That's a classic 2-1 grind scenario. So it isn't necessarily always about recovering the ball and preventing the touchdown, although that's the ideal scenario. Sometimes it's about putting pressure on the ball or putting pressure on the rest of his team, his or her team rather, of course, to force him to put the touchdown in, or her, so that you can get possession back, you can start your drive and try and respond. So how about you stalling out? What situation would you want to stall out? Of course, you want to make sure that you've got the players to do it. You may be players down, might have been a tough drive. You might not have all the players that ideally you would need in order to stall out properly. That could be a situation where you think, you know what, it's just not worth it. Again, only guaranteed touchdown is the one that goes in. Put the touchdown in and then see what your opponent can do for the next 3 turns or something like that. If you've already watched my vlog about the caging and defending the ball, that's a good thing to look at this stage, to consider the kind of situation you want to be in to stall correctly. Obviously, you want to keep the ball safe. You want to make sure that mathematically it is improbable as possible for your opponent to actually blitz your ball carrier when you're stalling out, because as in the scenario that I've just mentioned there, if you leave your opponent with, you know, a 1 in 3 dodge to make, and then he's got a 1 or 2 dice block on your ball carrier, then that's really not a great situation to consider yourself safe in. So it's got to be really a situation where you feel super comfortable. You know, he's got to make a 5 up, then a 6 up, and then he's got a half dice block or something like that. You know, really try and maximize the amount of dice that your opponent has got to roll in order to get to your guy. So that's the general concept of stalling. It's something that you are likely to come across in tournament play, because, as I said, it's not, there's most tournaments, I guess 99% of tournaments really, there's no star player point progressional situation. It's usually just a rule pack. It's resurrection style tournament, so sometimes you do occasionally get bonus points where more touchdowns means more points, but I think the majority is still that the bottom line is winning the game, and sometimes that 1-0 or 2-1, you know, is just as good as winning a game 4-0 or something like that. So that's stalling. Hopefully you don't have to just sit there and watch the dwarf cage grind its way down to your touchline and you're helpless to do anything about it. So other thing, just sorry off the top of my head before I wind the video up, a kind of simple way to minimize the possibility of you being stalled out is simply not dragging your players out of position. You know, not committing a bunch of players into your opponent's half. If you keep your guys back in your defensive turn, you know, while your opponent's got the drive, then you're going to lessen the chances that he or she has got to actually stall. You know, he's not going to be able to form that cage as comfortably. The chances to progress it up are going to be minimal. Maybe they're even going to have to rush that touchdown because there's just too many players that you've got back for it to be a comfortable scenario. So that the only option, again, only guaranteed touchdown is the one that goes in. They've just got to put that touchdown in. So anyway, guys, have a great day. That'll do for now. Get rolling some dice, get playing some Blood Bowls, and we'll see you later.